So good afternoon. Excited to be chatting with all you folks today, and excited to have Jen here for our fireside chat. We're going to shift gears a little bit. We've learned a lot about LLM visibility, SEO, how AI is shaping search and visibility. But what we really wanted to dig in today is how AI and LLMs is shaping and rather reshaping the customer journey overall, going beyond visibility and what's actually helping pull them through to the actions that really drive the business, whether that be conversions, subscriptions, purchases, so on and so forth. And so that's what we're really going to jump into today. And it's a bit of a unique triumvirate of technologies here, because we've got Conductor, which is obviously the leader in visibility, understanding around LLM and SEO visibility. You have Knotch, where we really focus on helping understand how content is impacting the overall customer journey and moving people through that journey and progressing them to the end of it. And then you have Acquia, which is the leader in helping you curate, manage, and then deliver those digital experiences. And so hopefully we can bring both a kind of marketing leadership point of view, but also a technology point of view to the conversation. So Jen, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
So first question we want to dig into is that as the CMO, you've seen firsthand how AI is transforming not just search, but marketing overall. And I want to kind of dig into, like, how is your role as a CMO fundamentally changing, especially when you're managing a bunch of different stakeholders, internally in a technology company like Acquia?
Yeah, my job's really fun because I get to run marketing at Acquia, and so I get to do everything that you do every day, but I also get to be part of a technology company that's building the technology for marketers to use. So I also get to speak to CMOs at our companies, probably 2 or 3 a week, actually, which is really fascinating, all sizes, all industries. And I've been in tech marketing my entire career. And I think it's really exciting because there's so much we can use and we can do differently. But I've also heard it called, it's like the wolf at the door. Because there's this AI thing is there, it's already in our house, it's dangerous. And how do we use it to the best advantage? But not everybody in our organization or the people coming up, even out of school, have the experiences yet. And so the world for the CMO has definitely changed. I would also say that for me, boards, whether you're private, publicly held, they're all going to ask about it. It's probably the first thing in marketing that has now got on the agenda of the board, right? Which is, so it's a very different conversation because they couldn't care less in the past about social media. They really couldn't. They couldn't care less about most of the things that we do with that unless it's kind of revenue generating. But AI is the thing that is on the agenda.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that we hear too, in speaking with CMOs, is that the word efficiency comes up a lot, which I think is probably like CFO code word for cost cutting, which is not great. How have you reframed the conversation at Acquia, and how have you seen other companies like navigate that?
Yeah, it's true. When I say it's a board agenda, it's because AI equals cost cutting, right? That's generally what they think. Oh, how many heads can you cut down because you can now be more productive across every different team? And so I will tell you that the conversation for me is I would take a 10% growth over a 20% reduction in cost. And so would every board and every C-level that you talk to. So if you can turn it into the productivity conversation and use some of these tools, like we use Jasper, for example, we can talk about hours saved, but I can talk about new content put out there and then get into some of those high-level KPIs like we do with Knotch about what does the customer journey mean? How's that impacting the entire customer journey and the full funnel? Then we get into a productivity discussion, not a cost discussion.
Yeah, and I think that part of what we're doing from a technology perspective is when we're looking at this customer journey is helping CMOs translate, like, how is LLMs actually shifting behavior? And we've seen shifts in behaviors over the years, whether it was the advent of SEO and then social, mobile, apps, like behavior evolves. And so we're seeing that as well. And the importance of the website is changing as well. So a few data points that I just want to throw into the conversation that I think is really interesting when we think about how LLMs are shifting the behavior when people arrive at a website. So part of what we do and what we do with Acquia is we look at these long tail customer journeys over multiple sessions and understanding what's nurturing them through. And what we've seen is that people who are converting directly from a LLM, so they're clicking on a citation, convert at about twice the rate as other site traffic. And so they're definitely more activated when they're coming to the site. But interestingly enough, they take more like diffuse journeys is the best way of putting it. So they're less predictable. They're consuming pages all over the place, which then as a marketer, you have to really think about how is every page designed to convert, to take advantage of this AI primed audience. And then finally, very interesting is that the speed to convert is a lot faster. So they convert in about a third of the time as other sources, and in about half as many sessions. So average time to conversion could be 5 sessions. They're doing it in about 2.5 sessions. And so you have this very activated audience that's coming to your site that has a different expectation that other site visitors have. So I'm curious, like, what have you been seeing in the data on your site, and how have you been meeting that?
Well, first of all, thanks to you, I have the data. So it's amazing that we can get this full journey data. So I will tell you in the last quarter. So my SEO traffic declined 13%. My LLM traffic increased 22%. Now, the SEO traffic is still a smaller percentage than the LLM. But to what Andrew just said, the LLM traffic is converting at about 10% organically versus something like 2.6% I'd see normally, right? So I'm saying to my team, how do we get more LLM traffic? Because it converts better. Where do we spend our time there? The other thing that's been interesting that we've managed to be able to analyze is we have Acquia.com, which is what you'd consider as like a classic website, right? It's got all kinds of content. We also built something called Acquia TV. Acquia TV is like our Netflix, our always on TV channel. It's pure video content. I can tell you through the analysis we can do with Knotch that traffic on Acquia TV from LLMs converts at twice that than the Acquia.com site. So that tells me that video content is even more successful in conversion off of the LLMs. That allows us to be much more targeted with the small team we have for content and really getting specific into what kind of content is taking people through the journey.
Yeah, we've seen this across a few other clients. So this is a bit anecdotal, and I want to do more robust studies around it. But if you think about this new primed audience that's coming to the site, you would think that, oh, they're ready to convert. They'll be going to more like lower funnel content, product pages, and then converting right away. But it's actually the opposite in many cases, and it's similar to you where they're actually consuming video content. We see that people are going to like more upper funnel brand content because they've done the nitty gritty research out in the LLM, but they almost want to like validate and they want to learn more about the brand and have that emotional connection, whether it's B2B or B2C, before they're ready to take action. And again, it's just another kind of like tweak in the customer behavior that LLMs is kind of prodding along.
Yeah, yeah.
So where do I want to go next? So as far as the one thing that we've seen for clients across the board is that there's this rush to optimize. And we think about it as like the robot audience and the human audience, right? Because you have to appeal to both. We've had clients that ran out and like went really hard on optimizing for LLM and it inadvertently tanked on-site performance, and some people have indexed the other way. How have you navigated that and like working with the team to create a very kind of audience-first, audience-focused approach?
Well, we haven't perfected it because as we've heard like over and over again, nobody's perfected it. We are also, or I'm lucky that we have a tool that is an accessibility tool too. So the one thing I say about all of this content is there are so many ways in which you have to make content productive for the different audiences, whether that be a bot, a human that has needs or disability needs. So if you think about anything coming to your site that is coming from anybody using a screen reader, anything that is a PDF that isn't remediated will not get read. Anything that is anybody that is colorblind and you have certain, so creating content on your site goes beyond just creating it for one source. I think we have to think about all those sources. And more often when you think about all the reasons for accessibility that you change content, that will actually help LLMs too. So I think it's just a much broader strategy rather than just focusing on one area.
Yeah, and obviously...
I mean, I'll say we saw, from an accessibility point of view, actually Gartner stated that you lose 17% of your traffic if your site isn't accessible. And I'd ask how many of you know what percentage your site is accessible? because it should be over 85%. And if you went and ran a scan to see what it is, you'd probably be quite shocked. But think about, you could be losing 17% of your traffic because of that. That's outside of even LLMs. So I just think there has to be a much broader strategy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that the one common theme across a lot of brands that we see out there is the breaking down of traditional silos, where you can't just be responsible for driving traffic anymore. You can't just be responsible for on-site performance. You have to have the whole thing, and it has to be a much more integrated approach. And obviously, technology can help enable that. Talk us through tech stack a little bit and how you're thinking about that, and how it services that more closed loop foundation.
Yeah. We ran a survey recently to about 500 digital marketing decision makers in the UK and in the US, and we asked them about readiness of AI and AEO, and it was fascinating to me that 70% of that audience said, we know it's going to be fundamental to a digital marketing strategy, but only 20% were actually doing anything, and 18% said not even interested, not in thinking about it, which is kind of scary. When we asked them what reasons were the blockers, I think it was like 45% said budget, and then 40% said internal skills, which actually comes back to answering your question, which is you can use tools to train the internal skills. So I love that my team are excited about AI, not because it's going to take their job away, but it's going to make them better. And these tools like Conductor and Knotch and how we integrate them with a CMS enables them to be more productive. And so now they're excited about thinking about, how can I do more? How can I be the hero and do more? Because the tools can help. Just like ChatGPT can be used as a training tool for anything, right? We can use these tools to help train our teams too, and to connect the interconnection of all of those things so that we're not just measuring one part, but that we have a full journey overflow, a full journey overview is where it becomes really, really important.
How have you approached that from a team structure perspective, in a measurement perspective? Because I think there's a lot of people that, again, we're in a silo and they're like, my job is to do X and my KPI is Y. And like that doesn't happen anymore. Yeah,
that's a great question. We actually allocated one full headcount out of what was our development team that was developing on Acquia.com. We have now one headcount that's purely focused on AI initiatives in marketing. And her sole job is to look at what systems we have, how they're being used, how people are trained, what people want to put into kind of the list of things that we want to look at, and then run a full KPI list to say, these are what we're measuring now, and what do we really want to get to measure. And it's her full-time job to go around and talk to the team, and we survey them, and we look at what use of tools they're using. We really had to have that dedicated focus for it to be driven, because we found we had a lot of point solutions. If you use Salesforce, it has AI, right? If whatever piece of tech you have in your MarTech, there's some part of AI in all of it. But for me, it was connecting the dots. So I could really see how can the team be more efficient and driving, kind of for me, a bigger bottom of funnel.
From a leadership perspective, like what did you have to overcome to maybe help people break out of that mindset of, I have my isolated view in my little world, and this is what I'm really focused on, to being more focused on that full journey, and like how do you connect it to the end results?
I think you have to inspire them with what's possible, and they have to want to know to do that. I'm a believer that the marketing roles of the future are going to change, and we're not going to be hiring these departmental resources. I don't even think they'll exist. I wish universities taught more about it, I really do, because I also don't think that graduates are coming out with the skills they need. I have a student daughter myself, and I worry every day long that she's not getting enough. I worry that my high schooler isn't getting enough on AI. And I wish schools did more, and I think we have to advocate for that, but they have to want to learn, and there's so many sites out there that can give you free resources to help your team. And we run like monthly awards where we say your reward is now you get to go to a specific conference, just to get them excited about how it can develop their own career.
Yeah. So for the marketers in the room at all different levels, like what are some of the key takeaways that you think that they should be taking back to their organizations, coming out of a conference like this, and from this insight sharing that they get?
I think the first one is that this is a senior level initiative. This is a CMO level initiative. we have a broad tech stack. There's many solutions we offer. The reason I get to sit in front of CMOs of our customers today is because they need an AI strategy as part of their digital marketing strategy. I don't get called in always when they need a digital asset management solution, because that doesn't get up to the CMO. So I would say this is a CMO level initiative where they're looking at how can we be the best and how can I report that up. The second thing I'd say is we've heard a lot here about great things you can do with SEO and LLM, but the full journey I think is really important in understanding what content, what drives to the site, what is being consumed. You have a great term you use at Knotch of corrosive content, which I love. So when you look at some reports and you look at volume is great and traffic is great, but your most corrosive content is high volume content that does not convert because it's just a waste. And so I think that full journey is really, really important.
Yeah, we like to think about also, when we work with content teams, digital and integrated marketing teams, for the longest time, content, there's been an output KPI around it, and they feel like they're on this hamster wheel where they're just producing. And the more teeth that you can put around measurement to get into more of an outcome-driven mindset is incredibly catalyzing across the entire team, because you can then tie, yes, SEO traffic, yes, LLM visibility is having this impact on the end business results, and it's not just sitting off in its own place.
I do think it's resurrecting the whole brand story too, which I love, because content is now about more than just selling a product or a service or a feature. It has to be about thought leadership. And we were talking earlier, and I was saying, if you go way back in time, Patagonia is the best example of this as a brand. Before even we were all talking about AI and LLM, their content isn't based on you buy a fleece. It's based on their sustainability, their love for the environment. You buy for them because it's something different, and therefore their content is the first you will find when anybody, and they're doing great from an LLM perspective because their content is cited and it's just full of research, but it's also thought leadership. And so if we take examples of that, it makes me look at my content every day and say, hey, this is pushing a piece of tech. This isn't really adding value. We got to add more value, then it becomes more visible.
I mean, humans are value-driven creatures, right? And they're story-driven creatures. And as much as we can think about things in a technical perspective to get in front of the eyeballs, you have to remember that there's that audience behavior and that value exchange that you have to create to move people through. And that's going to be different for every brand, obviously, whether B2C, B2B. But there's that commonality that you're still selling to a human for the time being. At some point in time, maybe agents do it all for us. But for now, it's about the audience, So we've got a couple minutes left. I wanted to open it up to questions in the audience. Yes, sir.
So, Andrew, could you elaborate back at the beginning of the presentation talking about after someone has done beginning research and go back to the funnel, closer to the brand? Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the question is around the data that we've seen around what content is being consumed within the context of a journey when people coming in through an LLM. So there's a couple things. So one is right now when we're looking at LLM journeys, we're looking directly from people that are coming through a citation. So it's a pretty small sample size, but it's one that's indicative. Another thing that we're actually doing with Acquia is using our feedback survey capabilities to also understand how many people are coming to the site that did an AI search but didn't click on anything, but they came in indirectly to understand that site volume. But it comes down to then what is the content that they're consuming that brings them through the journey. And as I was mentioning, they convert at a higher rate, they convert faster, they convert in less sessions. And so intrinsically as a marketer, you'd think, be like, well, they're already through their consideration process and they're already like at the end of the road and they're gonna go to a product page and convert right away. What we've been seeing with a few of our clients, and again, anecdotal, like small set of data, but everyone's looking at small sets of data right now to kind of see what's going on. Some of the content that seems to be popping up the most is more upper funnel brand type content, as Jen was saying. And I think that the idea there is that they look in the LLM to kind of understand like where they should be going, but they still need to learn about the brand and they have to create an emotional connection, again, whether it's B2C or B2B, before they're ready to go to that next step. So it was just a unique thing that we saw that we weren't really expecting when we were looking at the journey data. Yeah, great question. Gu, far back first.
Thank you. So you talked about the corrosive content being the high traffic, low converting, but then also bringing up the Patagonia example, talking about content that exists just for thought leadership. So there isn't necessarily that direct conversion KPI attached to it. So what thoughts do you have on reconciling those two? Tracking like a broader set of KPIs to measure success, even when that success isn't conversion?
So I actually think it is. So I believe that the thought leadership and the conversion is tied to one, and it just means all your content. Thought leadership is kind of a buzzword, isn't it? Because it makes you think that there is nothing kind of concrete in that. But to me, if the Patagonia example is everything they put out there is still driving to a conversion on an e-com site, ultimately, right? So I actually think they go, it's a bit like saying brand marketing versus demand generation. I've always thought they were one and the same. Now we're executing that through these digital forums where people are self-serving themselves and where these non-human engines are hopefully bringing those traffic back to us. It also goes into the fact that I think the website of the future is going to be massively different than it is today. I ultimately don't think that homepages will exist. I think we're just going to be curating content that gets served up through all these channels, through all of these search engines.
Yeah, and just from a technology perspective, we also capture qualitative feedback, like audience sentiment, to understand whether or not the content is achieving a value exchange with the audience. So if we're working with a client that is very thought leadership oriented, we may bias our measurement more towards engagement and audience sentiment, but we still want to keep audience journey in their back pocket, because just because something is upper funnel doesn't mean that you can't link it to a conversion. If that journey takes 3 to 6 months, we can still see that. So there's one more question, and then I think we're out of time. Right in front of you.
About the Acquia TV, I thought that was a really interesting layout to that, and maybe some more background on how that was put together compared to maybe just a YouTube channel or just a /videos folder, and also if you think that's something that can be expanded into other industries. Like, for example, I work in industrial measurement, and we have a lot of video content, but something like that I don't think anyone in our industry currently has.
I could talk to you about that. I used to work for a video company too, so I'm very passionate about video. The reason I don't do it on YouTube is I want to own the data, and I'm worried about the cookieless future, right? So that's the short answer to that, but just go look at Acquia TV. That has actually been built with RCMS Drupal as the front end, and then we use Vimeo as our video provider, and then we run our analytics. With that, we run with Conductor and Knotch, and we look at all the content. We look at how we're redescribing those videos. We have AI assistance over the top. But it's proof to me that people want, even in a B2B world, people want video to consume video.
Yep, for sure. So we're out of time. If there are more questions, I think there's a break right after this. We'll be outside, happy to chat some more. But thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it. Thank you.